Shalom Chaverim, I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live, and we apologize. We've been caught up with so many things going on here recently that we just have not been in the news like we normally are. And we are definitely, of course, we've been keeping an eye on things, seeing what's going on, but getting back into that once again. Wanted to bring out this message here today. Of course, it's the, what is today? April the 5th, I believe it is, 2019. Trump administration's latest attack on the press is to block reporters from covering Pompeo. This was this faith-based media that no one really knew what was this all about. This was reported by Vox News that actually spoke about this here. And it was the State Department that had barred reporters from non-religious outlets from covering a briefing called about international religious freedom with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. At least this is what we're being told that it was for international religious freedom. And well, I would think that any media should at least have one, if not, or actually two. Press representatives from secular media that are present there. That only seems to be on the up and up to do something like that. Well, it was, like I said, so many people wondered what was going on. And what I find interesting in this is that it didn't really come out very quickly either what the meeting was about. In fact, here is a photograph from the website Now the End Begins of that meeting. And I'm not sure, but that kind of looks like Paula White there in the photo right there. These are some of the very leading evangelicals that were on Trump's, that are part of his advisory board that were actually invited to this meeting. And of course, it's dealing with the White House inviting evangelicals in to discuss Jared Kushner's Middle East peace plan, but none of them seem to understand Bible prophecy. That's the title of the article on Before It's News, and I probably would have to agree with the author on that just a bit, that they probably don't really know truly what biblical prophecy is, because they're not taking a stand against this move of a two-state solution. Now, the reality of this, according to different sources that are out there, the Jerusalem Post also reporting on this peace plan, grant Jordanian citizenship to 1 million Palestinian refugees. And it would seem that, you know, just from an outside look, well, they're going to end up moving all to Jordan. No. Basically, Jordan and Egypt, according to this leaked information about this peace plan, are going to be getting citizenship. Basically, from what I can tell thus far, the people living in Gaza will come under Egyptian citizenship, and those Palestinians living in the West Bank would come under Jordanian citizenship. But it does not mean that they are being taken out of the country and moved into Jordan, or vice versa, taken out of Gaza and moved into Egypt. No. It actually will give them autonomy underneath either the Egyptian government or either the Jordanian government. There are some that are to be relocated as a result. The absorption also of the Palestinians that are in the country of Jordan right now will become actually Jordanian citizens. In one way, it would be maybe a benefit for the Palestinian people. They won't have their own state, but they will. The West Bank and that we have now, which is called by people like Yehuda Glick and the Knesset, Judea and Samaria, that will actually come under the autonomy of the country of Jordan. And in fact, it was the country of Jordan that fought against the Israelis back in the '67 war. And they were able, or 1948 war actually, and they were able to keep those areas there. There is also, though, in this plan that has been leaked out, there are some settlements inside the West Bank that will remain settlements for the Israelis, but there are some that will be actually uprooted and the Israelis will be moved out. Now, I noticed the other day that Prime Minister Netanyahu talked about putting 250,000 citizens, Israeli citizens, up in the Golan. And it looks like to me that that is probably where that will come from. They will probably be Israeli citizens that are living in the West Bank that they're going to uproot and move to the Golan instead of being there in the West Bank. Now, if that's the case, that will kind of forfeit what I was told years ago, that the Golan, that there would be many of the Palestinians moving up into the Golan. And of course, anything can change as we go. But the division of Jerusalem doesn't change. There's still a division of Jerusalem according to the details that have been leaked thus far. But again, it's so odd that the Mike Pompeo and President Trump, of course he's at the meeting as well, have only faith-based media present. And the reason being, from what I can gather, is that Trump knows that we're coming up to the election year. Campaigns are about to kick off for next year, for 2020, for him to run as President of the United States. He needs evangelicals to sell to the Christian world. And there, of course, even the Catholic Church had representatives there as well. He needs them to sell that this is a good deal. And as I said, Jerusalem is going to be divided. Now, the Jordanians are going to be the ones that have the autonomy over that division. They're still going to keep the Temple Mount. So I have a feeling that it'll be the Jordanian government basically setting up in East Jerusalem. They're going to set up what we would call maybe like the mayor of East Jerusalem, which would be a Palestinian, etc. But nonetheless, we're still dividing the land. And you know, I support Palestinian rights. I have to just say it straight up, because I know there's some people that don't like that. They say, well, they're just a bunch of Egyptians and Jordanians to begin with. There are a lot that are Jordanians. There are a lot that are Egyptians, but there are also a lot that are crypto-Jews that are Palestinians. And there are many, tens of thousands, that are Christians and get neglected by the Christian community as a result because of the name Palestinian. But nonetheless, you know, in one way, especially for the people of Gaza, them coming under Egyptian, as Egyptian citizens, it might finally break the stalemate, the blockades, and be able to get some normalcy for those people living in Gaza. I can't say that it will or will not. I'm just saying it may be a benefit there. But in reality, though, what we are seeing with this peace plan that is coming up is a new world order. And this is what a lot of people are completely overlooking, is the very fact that it is going to be a new world order. And Jerusalem is going to be the headquarters. It's one reason why we see the moving of the embassies. It wasn't that President Trump was being some kind of great hero when he said he's going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. Many of your Western nations are also going to move their embassies to Jerusalem, and Eastern nations and Arabic nations will move their embassies to East Jerusalem. Why? Because Jerusalem will become the capital of a new world order. But before they can do that, and before, as the Talmudist community believes, before the Mashiach can come, they have to conquer the entire world and set up the 7 Noahide laws. Yeah, they got to do that in order for this to all come to fruition. So I wouldn't be quite so enthusiastic about this deal. Like I said, it may benefit Palestinians somewhat, but I don't think the Israeli sovereignty, military sovereignty, will be given up. And because they would be considered Jordanian citizens or Egyptian citizens, that would still put them in a predicament of being tried in a military tribunal in Israel, such as many children are, and are sentenced to prison for 10 and 20 years. Kids as young as 10 years old. Something is wrong with this picture here. But at any rate, President Trump's deal of the century, Middle East peace plan, would have Palestinians become citizens of Jordan. So on before it's news, but it is still part of the article by the Now the End Begins, just talking about some of the details of it. The battle for control of Jerusalem goes all the way back to the first book of the Bible ever written, the book of Job. Job represents the type of Jews. I won't get into all that right now, but they just make the case there that the evangelicals certainly did not stand up for biblical principle, knowing that an antichrist will actually come and reign as a result of what's going to come out. Also, Netanyahu may have submitted false financial statements, a watchdog tells Attorney General. You know, I wonder, all these different allegations that come against him are not actually done intentionally to bolster him. You know, but nonetheless, State Comptroller bases suspicions on statements Netanyahu gave to Permits Committee, which recently barred him from receiving funds from his cousin to cover his legal defense. And now they're saying that he may have broken those laws, and they're looking for another indictment. It could be, though, political wrangling in Israel, maybe to help Benny Gantz get in. There's also issues that he's also using social media robots in order to bolster his position in the elections. But who knows? All politicians are pretty much corrupt from what I can see. This was an interesting tweet that come out from Yehuda Glick right here, and I know you could click on it, you could translate it, but it actually is not quite accurate in the translation. Twitter's translate never is really accurate. But the Knesset member Yehuda Glick is saying to the people that he was forgiving them if they've ever written him on the Sabbath or insulted him on the Sabbath, that he was forgiving them. And I thought it was kind of an odd statement to put out there. And although I do believe in honoring the Sabbath, I go back to what Jesus said, is it better to do good or to do evil on the Sabbath? I actually made that statement to him. Yoter tov, which is which is much better, la'oseh tov or ra b'Shabbat. In other words, which is better to do on the Sabbath? Is it better to do good or to do evil? And if you think about it, the Israeli government, and of course I understand this is why when I look at this issue of the Sabbath, like Yeshua said, which is better to do good or to do evil, when they were condemning him for healing on the Sabbath. Now, Yehuda Glick is saying he's going to forgive the people if they just wrote him a letter on the Sabbath. But Knesset members also have to write letters and memos when they're dealing with national security issues. The Israeli military that is under the guide of the Israeli Knesset, under the Prime Minister, 52 weeks out of the year, or 50 times a year, are of course breaking the Sabbath. But which is better, to do good or to do evil? In a lot of cases, it's for national security, to protect the nation, right? So we have to use a little bit of common sense in here. And maybe there is an urgency, someone trying to contact him. And there's no other time to contact but on the Sabbath. Do they need to be forgiven? You know, the only reason I bring this up because I'm very concerned about the Noahide laws and the implications that they're going to have in the future world government, a new world government, you might call it, because they don't like the word New World Order that's already been bashed back and forth over the years, so they're afraid of that terminology. But I will say this here, there's coming a time when the Sanhedrin will exercise authority once they've conquered the rest of the nations and brought them all under subjection to this one world government that's coming, which, by the way, Russia's also involved. Don't kid yourself. President Putin is very much a part of this new world order system as well. Really and truly, I guess the last country to break is going to be Americans, because most private citizens that are patriots are armed to the teeth, and that's a problem for this new world order system. But they're already working on passing laws to silence us here as well. Especially this new law that came out that Congress passed already now before the Senate, the anti-Semitism bill. And no, it's not just about anti-Semitism, which I would be for an anti-Semitism if people were just bashing Jewish people and bringing about hate crimes, which is already against the law in this nation. But no, it will be really more directed at media. It'll be directed at those that are exposing what truly goes on, the corruption that goes on within the elite circles of the Israeli government, and it will expose deep state agendas that are going on, both in the United States. It would also stop media from being able to report what AIPAC has done or what they continue to do. People like when we had on here recently former Congresswoman McKinney and how she exposed the corruption in Washington, D.C., how AIPAC, they cut their funding. You don't have any funds to run as a politician and can control both sides, both Democrat and Republicans. That's why you see there is a unity there. You can do a little bit, but you can't say much. Think about it. Freedom of speech is going to be a thing of the past in the not-so-distant future, even here in America. Telling the truth, what really happened on 9/11. In fact, one lady that refused to take the, I think, $1.9 million settlement after her husband died on 9/11 was an outspoken critic and said that it was an inside job and that she was going to expose it, mysteriously dies in a plane crash only weeks after she refused the money. Those type things you could never say again under this new anti-Semitism bill. We're going to be bringing that out again this week on the Steve and Yana chat on Wednesday nights live at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So join us there. A lot of things we're going to be discussing, but it's a serious time we're living in, friends. And there's not much time left. So we're trying to do all we can here in the background to get things ready to prepare and to try to give you information into your hands before it becomes illegal to do so. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Thank you for supporting this broadcast. Your support is vital to us. You can visit our website, israelinewslive.org. And on our website, if you go there, you have a couple of different ways. We just don't focus as much on the giving part as far as giving people different options to be able to give, because people ask us about that. Something on Super Chat, you could do that where you could donate there. I will try to look into this and see what we can do. But on our website, you can donate online right there. And of course, our actual mailing address is right there as well here in Orlando, Florida. We thank you for your support and kindness. And we'll be sending out quite a few letters here this weekend. So hopefully some of you that have written us will be able to, will get caught up on answering you as well. Shalom, shalom. In a world of Ein Shalom.